Hey, good morning, YouTube. What's going on? Thanks for checking in with us. I'm still not set up here. But what's going on out there in the real world? How's everybody doing? Halfway through our calendar work week, which may or not be the actual work week for some of us. Let me figure out who's with us here. Pull up the external. If I can get that far into this before something breaks. All right. We got Walter Davis with us. Walter, what's going on? Can you request? That's a bit too 70s for me. Oh, everything fitting for what's happening in DC. We might have some more choice music for that if we want to. Probably needs to be more directive, not so descriptive about DC. Tommy Boy Nines with us. Good morning. How's it going? It's raining there. It looks like it's raining there. Yeah, that's pretty much what the weather picture says. Rain and more rain. UNM Long can't win. And that more rain over North Texas and et cetera. It looks like we got a little bit of snow propping up there in Canada. So it's getting to be that time of year. But rain all up and down the Appalachians, and that'll be moving eastward here soon, I'm sure. So stay dry. It is nice and dry out here. They're saying we might get some rain shortly, but not quite yet. Hey, Barry Wood, good morning. How's it going? Thanks for checking in. Your bushes are looking nice, Tommy Boy. That's good. Everything's got to grow, but may not be exactly the thing that you wanted to grow, right? Is that the way it works? All right, well, getting into it after your weather snapshot. It was funny that the top headline of the Weather Channel this morning was that boy being stranded that we talked about on Monday. It's like we're getting way. I don't know why the Weather Channel it's not weather related, but we were way ahead of in that regard. But where do we start today? Quite a lot of stuff. I don't think I have any positive, good stories like that to go through today. O'Keefe and Project Veritas came out with a new video yesterday about an IRS official, which was just as revealing as the other ones. If you haven't seen it, that's really why I wanted to bring it up. It's linked below, but basically brings in an IRS agent and gives them the same opportunity to stumble over and convict themselves on camera once again. Basically, this idiot. I mean, he's another guy you look at, you're like, oh yeah, he's a communist. But using the power of the IRS against them. And there's another gentleman on here too towards the end. But it's funny that they catch him on camera. He's afraid he's going to get O'Keefed. It talks about how O'Keefe had done the thing with Acorn, and they were joking about that stuff. And that was funny to see. But once again, talking to some female that they're trying to impress somehow, I'm sure. So, corrupt agencies doing what we know they would be doing, corruption. No surprise there, but definitely worth a watch and a share if you haven't seen it yet or had wondered where the link was. There's one down below if you want to check it out. So that was good and bad news, I guess you would say. Moving on. I guess we'll go with the economic coming forward. Bonds are set to raise. Fed is expected to raise interest rates again today. Today's the day, I guess. And there should be an outlook. So there should be a Fed report of some sort coming out today and a raising of bond rates, which has got, apparently markets are going up. Everything pushed up yesterday, but 10-year bond is already floating around 3.1. And we'll just see what happens with that. But a good one out of the zero hedge, well, not a good one, a concerning one. As debt rises, the government will spend more on interest than on the military. And we know how much we spend on the military, right? It's almost unfathomable. But the federal government could soon pay more in interest on its debt than it spends on the military, Medicaid, or children's programs. The run-up in borrowing costs is a 1-2 punch on the need to finance a fast-growing budget deficit, made worse by tax cuts and the steadily rising interest rates, which is going to make that debt more expensive. Super inflation, I guess we could call it. To pay off the debt, you got to borrow. It's the whole cycle of, it's like a self-flicking ice cream cone. It's not going to last long. Yeah. Paying more, borrow more, to pay back more. It's an endless cycle that's going to end badly. This is there's no good end to this story of musical chairs. But with less money coming in and more going toward interest. Wait, what do you mean less money coming in? They've set record tax receipts like the last 3 or 4 quarters in a row. We've talked about that and showed articles on that documentation. So what are they talking about? Less money coming in. Interesting how they can. So where do they get that less money coming in part of that? Like, we've talked about this and documented. It's been on their page, CNBC, that your record tax receipts have been coming in. Political leaders will find it harder to address pressing needs like fixing crumbling roads and bridges or make emergency moves like pulling the money out of future recessions. Oh, yeah. Well, we shouldn't. Let's get the government out of building roads and people that use them build roads, and then that'd probably be a good place to start. Because that's what's going to end up happening anyway. If we'd all just get helicopters, small planes, we wouldn't have to worry about these roads, right? Within a decade, more than $900 billion in interest payments will be due annually. So annually, we'll be spending $900 billion on just the interest of the debt. I could see, easily outpacing spending on a myriad of other programs. Already, the fastest growing major government expense on the cost of interest is on track to hit $390 billion next year. So that's how quickly it could get out of hand. In 10 years, it triples, basically. And that's probably a conservative estimate. There's probably estimates that put it $1.5 trillion or something crazy like that. So let's read this. Hold on. Let me read that again. Already the fastest growing major government expense, the cost of interest, is on track to hit $390 billion next year, nearly 50% more than in 2017, according to the Congressional Budget Office. So it jumped 50% in just a year. What caused that, I wonder? Hey, Wes Seth is with us. What's up, Wes? Yeah, exactly, Wes. I think that's exactly what was going on. By their expressions, you read the tells from them, and They would wish they wouldn't have bragged quite so much. Gradually rising interest rates would have made borrowing more expensive even without additional debt. Duh. But the tax cuts passed late last year. Oh, they're going to blame it on tax cuts. Late last year have created a deeper hole with the deficit increasing faster than expected. A budget bill approved in February that raised spending by 300 billion over 2 years will add to the financial pressure. Yeah, all that extra money we needed to spend on everybody's pet project in the military. We talked about that budget increase incessantly. Um, no fiscal responsibility whatsoever. The deficit is expected to total nearly 1 trillion next year. That's the budget deficit, not the debt. The first time it has been that big since 2012 when the economy was still struggling. So interest on the national debt are expected to triple over the next decade, according to the Congressional Budget Office. I mean, at 50% more just overnight. Deficit hawks have gone silent, except for like 4 of them. Even proposing changes that would exacerbate the deficit. Yep, they do it every day, don't they? Want to spend more. House Republicans introduced legislation this month that would make the tax cuts permanent. Till we get smacked upside the head with another financial collapse of some sort. We're in trouble. We're doing exactly what Venezuela and all these countries have done. Can't learn a lesson. The deficit is soaring now as the economy booms, meaning the stimulus is pro-cyclical. The risk is that the government would have less room to maneuver if the economy slows. Yeah, we have zero room to maneuver, essentially, which is why Trump is so angry about the rising of interest rates by the Fed. That's the only thing combating this thing from going hyperinflation slowly, but little bit by little bit. And he's mad about that because it's going to hurt his economy even a little bit on the inflationary side. But then it's going to just shoot up. Debt as a share of GDP. Debt as a percentage of gross domestic product tends to increase during recessions and fall during recoveries. But that in debt is increasing now, even as the economy is growing, right? Because we're not spending any of it off. We're not paying anything off. Aside from wartime or a deep downturn like the 1930s or 2008, this sort of aggressive fiscal stimulus is unprecedented in U.S. history. So it's got to end well, right? We've never done it before, so it must be okay. And it says here the economy expanded at an annualized rate of 4.2% in the second quarter. Thing to remember, though, is most of that is just the additional money dumped in. It's not, it's the value, it's all denominated in dollars. So the numbers are skewed to that inflationary number. So it's always going to be shooting up. So this paragraph here, this is funny. Lawmakers might in fact be compelled to cut spending as tax revenues fall, further depressing the economy. There will eventually be another recession, and this increases the chances we will have to slam on the brakes when the car is already going too slowly, Mr. Frankel said. Um, if you're relying on government spending to support your economy, you're already doomed, which we are. Government is far too large a section of the economy to be useful. Hey, you can do it with us. What's going on? Need more coffee? Oh, I could use more coffee. I'm still about a half cup in. I'm never fully committed at this time of the morning. I've only got partially into it. but we're rolling. This is a pretty long article. I don't want to take up the whole time with just this, but you get the point. Um, the debt is going to burden us to such a large degree that when the economy slows for whatever reason here in the next 10 years, when we start spending $1 trillion on interest payments alone, um, or when people just when people lose faith in the dollar, when they stop transacting with the dollar, when other countries stop, when the Chinese sell off the rest of their bonds along with the Russians, um, any of those things. I mean, of all the political signs and political turmoil and economic forecast, the collapse due to the debt of the nation is the most predictable of all, and it's kind of like the most ignored. People just push it off to the next generation, if not just the next decade, depending on what the situation is. So that link's down below for you to feel good about this morning. Kind of the current story on this is out of Zero Hedge. Futures rise as the Fed set to hike rates in a few hours. U.S. futures gained 0.2% alongside higher Asian shares, while European, that can't be the right word. Is Boris's a word? European Boris's. I have never heard that. That's got to be a typo, right? But I can't think of what else it would mean other than European shares, European charts. I don't know. Asian and European were mixed amid generally thin volumes as the dollar rebounded from overnight lows and treasuries gained. Jibber jash for most of it, but everybody else is not quite as upbeat about it, I guess you would say, of us rising interest rate hike. And this is the problem. Everything's tied to the Fed nowadays because you just watch how everything kind of follows worldwide. It's like a ripple because it's so interdependent. There is no real independent economy anymore. They're all affected by each other one way or the other, and that's what causes the global collapse, potentially. They're just talking about the different trends and different charts. So more of a stock market watch thing if you're looking to trade or anything. But just wanted to hit that headline. Yeah, down to the weeds here on individual stocks. In geopolitical news, the U.S. National Security Advisor Bolton said the enforcement of sanctions will be aggressive and unwavering and will soon not be undermined by Europe or anybody else. South Korean President Moon said North Korea President Kim wants a second summit with U.S. as soon as possible. EU Commissioner Hahn rejected financial aid to Turkey. So wrapping up a couple big picture items that could affect the markets there as well. In the commodities, gold is once again finding momentum, 1,200 ounce level. It's down ahead of the FOMC rate decisions. Steel futures in China have dropped for the second straight day. China demands falls ahead of their week-long holiday. And they go to snapshots. All right, that's way too much trade detail, but just observing how the Fed's decision is going to affect things is really what I was going to get at there. Hey, Bug Out Bubba, what's going on? Good morning. Out here in this section of the country. I was looking up South Africa and found a story that's reminds you of just how similar we are to other countries, or something you might think are just the concerns over here. They are things that happen around the world. It's not just an American problem, I guess you'd say. But a 20-year-old man allegedly followed a 7-year-old girl into a restaurant restroom and raped her in the men's section, it says. I guess he took her out of the women's room into the men's room. So yeah, depravity and evil exist everywhere. Don't just think it's an American problem. Says here South Africa has one of the highest incidences of rape in the world. They do not discuss if they had any cultural differences or anything else. But starts off the main part of the article. South Africa's children are not safe anywhere. That is the sentiment of many who have expressed anger and shock at the alleged rape of the 7-year-old girl in a local restaurant in the capital, Pretoria, on Saturday. She was at a family-friendly restaurant and had been playing without much care, and yet violence found her even there. Um, and pretty sure South Africa doesn't have a Islamic invasion problem. It's not like they have this completely different culture coming in like they have in Europe, a lot of the issues. And they document a couple other cases. So a lot of concerns here that this is becoming all too prevalent in part of the culture, it looks like, against women and children, um, with a high incidence of rape uh, going on. So concerns there. And just I thought that was interesting considering how we view certain things as um, American problems or accusations of things happening 30 years prior, but things happening in the now as well. And I don't think this is like a white on black thing. I think this is just an overall throughout the country thing. But it's also a problem throughout Africa too. A lot of their culture and some of those more tribal nations. South Africa is probably one of the fortunate, more uh, modern nations that doesn't have the problem as some of the more reclusive ones. There's a lot to be said about that you probably won't hear in the news because of the culture going on there. So just a reminder there. Just want to put that out. So today's we'll wrap it up with today's sign of the apocalypse. Today's sign of the collapse. So I posted this on the G Plus yesterday. It's out of the Guardian. It's a truck of corpses in Mexico that's been going around for a while. And this story just caught on when this truck got stuck. So you can see the headline. News that authorities used a trailer to store 273 corpses offered a symbol for a crisis that affords no dignity to its victims. Um, so getting into it, this 18-wheeler came through a dilapidated neighborhood outside Guadalajara. Obviously, it's not a very, not it's just a refrigerated trailer truck, right? No special markings or nothing. What I find interesting, it is an international approved trailer, so it is approved to go from Canada to Mexico. And all that. It's got all the inspections and driver qualifications and all the things that were supposedly happening with NAFTA, which I wouldn't say necessarily were working out very well. I'm not sure how the new trade agreement's going to affect that, but anyway. Truck was unnoticeable except it came with a police escort. Pulled into a muddy track between a row of houses and a cornfield. And then it got stuck and it had a smell of death, recalls Alejandro Espinoza, who lives nearby. Crowd quickly gathered. Several youths pushed past the police and forced the trailer's door. This is getting all into the drama of the story. Let's get into inside the trailer were human bodies wrapped in garbage bags bound with duct tape, piled up haphazardly on top of each other. So not much regard for the condition of the remains stored inside. Local authorities eventually confirmed that 273 corpses had been dumped in the trailer after the relentless pace of violent crime left the local morgue without any space for new arrivals. For nearly 2 weeks, the truck had been drifting around the suburban hinterland around Mexico's second city. I guess Guadalajara, you'd say, is their second largest city. I guess what they're saying. Jalisco, which is the state that Guadalajara is in, or province, or whatever they call them. I think they're states. Jalisco officials were forced to admit that they had been using stationary trailers to store bodies for at least 2 years. So it's what you call a crisis, right? You're getting so many dead people that you can't keep them in a normal process. Here they're kind of attributing most of it to violent crime, gang war, stuff like that. But regular people are getting wrapped up in that too, as far as just the regular everyday heart attack, traffic accident, whatever. In the 12 years since Mexico launched its militarized war on drugs, more than 200,000 people have died. Another 35,000 have gone missing. But that's where kind of tying this to is that those events. They go on to say there are 20 other states with the same problem, said Octavio Cortero, who was the director of the Jalisco Forensic Science Institute, but he was fired after the trailer's discovery. Ah, somebody found out about it, decided to fire somebody because it's their fault, obviously. Local officials said they were simply unable to keep pace with the bloodletting of the last week. 444 bodies were awaiting identification. This is Catero, who was just fired as a forensic guy. He said I told the prosecutor I have nowhere to keep the bodies. They're already stacked up. In 2016, the state government started storing bodies in refrigerated trailers. It was supposed to be a stopgap measure until the completion of a new cemetery. Construction on that began several months ago, but was stopped after complaints by local residents. So you can either have a new cemetery or just get a tractor trailer driving around your neighborhood All right. Are we back live? Did we get back in? Well, that's not the way to close out. So uh, I can't know. I don't know where I was talking and where it cut out at. I was talking and realized I wasn't live. Um, but yeah, so this trailer business has been going on in Mexico for a while, I guess. Let's see here if I can get the side chat again. See, catch up here. Catch me up where I left off. What was the last thing we recalled? All right, let me get back in here. All right, okay, not broadcasting. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Your Tommy Boy's busy and I'm just rambling. All right, we'll cut off there. So I'll just get back in the middle of it. So yeah, you guys are getting the idea. There's all these trailers going around Mexico that they're having issues of storing dead bodies from all the violence, crime, police action, whatever's causing it. I think I left off here in 2016. The state government started storing bodies in refrigerated trailers. They canceled the construction of a new cemetery. Then they moved into a trailer. A representative Jalisco, speaking on a condition of anonymity, it looks like, said this is just the tip of the iceberg, who estimate 5 state investigators assigned to handle missing person cases had each around 400 case files. So lots of problems. But that's just getting to the point of I was getting to. This is just a sign of how things slowly collapse. Overwhelming of resources, of capacity of different functions. You can't build enough things to keep up with demand. For example, government services collapse. Then what, right? So that's kind of just the point of the getting to the whole thing. When you look at it from a broader perspective of the broader problem, what to expect when the collapse comes. Roaming death limos, if you will. I found it funny that the name on the side of the truck is LMO. I was looking at that as limo. It's like a limo for the dead in this large tractor and trailer. Let's catch up on the side chat here. Tommy Boy says nothing is happening until tomorrow. That's the big day. Okay. Truth Freeze is with us. Hey, good morning. What's going on? Walter Davis says they should have parked all the trailers together and set up a trailer park of mausoleums. Dad on YouTube. Hey, good morning. Thanks for checking in. Trailer park of mausoleums. Yeah, I guess that'd be one solution. I don't know that that's going to match up with the Mexican culture. But yeah, I could just imagine how worse this story would be of things that you don't know about or they don't know about in Mexico. Like they said here, this has been going on for weeks. and going back to 2016, even when they first started doing these stopgap measures, when they tried to get a new cemetery built, and this is just one state. This is just Guadalajara and Jalisco, state of Jalisco, as they said, which I'm probably saying wrong. It's not Jalisco though; it's Jalisco, right? Jalisco, just like Jesus. But just reading through it, it's yeah, truth. I don't. As far as fresh, I guess you'd say it depends on how they're doing. Are they doing first in, first out? Like the first bodies they put in they're taken out to identify them and get them buried. I wouldn't say that's necessarily going on. You know, it's kind of like I would say probably the ones that come in unidentified and are the biggest problems are probably getting buried and are probably deeply buried in that trailer. And the ones like, okay, we know who this guy is. It doesn't require a autopsy. You know, they know somebody died of old age or whatever. They're probably getting processed fairly quickly. But the ones that are getting shot in the street or unidentified persons, they're probably getting the ones getting thrown in there and forgotten about. Because the ones that have families, of course, are going to be on top of things and be like, okay, we're ready to bury our loved one or whatever. And they're going to the coroner, whoever the medical examiner or whatever they're calling this person, the forensics guy. The forensics guy probably actually doesn't even touch those cases. So these are all cases of missing, either missing people or people involved in gang violence that are unidentified because they don't have a family potentially to come identify them, and they're getting dumped in here. That's my kind of 2 cents on what's probably going on there. So yeah, these probably aren't fresh. That's probably why they talk about they smelled they smelled so bad and they came to this neighborhood and raised all the suspicion. But they do attribute it to violent crime as well, which left the local morgue without any space for the new arrivals. But you figure 270 deaths in addition to all the regular stuff that causes this they say for nearly 2 weeks they've been in this truck driving around the city. I mean, that's even bad Chicago doesn't even come close to this, you know. Or maybe Chicago's morgue is just really big. Maybe we're just gotten really good at building bigger morgues to deal with our problems, which is only can only get so big and so out of hand before people start wondering if we're spending more on burying people than keeping them from getting killed to begin with. It's like, what's the cost benefit? Truth Free says these are not the hundreds of college students missing a few years ago. I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, Truth. This is just one anecdotal case here in Mexico, as they're tying most of this to the drug war and gang wars that go on in various places. But this is the second largest city in Mexico, which kind of highlighted it to everybody that there's this big problem. And their death processing facilities can't keep up. So I don't know if there's lots of American college students, if that's what you mean, that go down there on spring break and disappear. That happens like every year. I don't think that's what this is tied to. It's not a missing persons thing. This is a shot dead on the streets thing. All right, everybody. That's about all I had for this morning. Sorry about the temporary delay, the interruption there. Got dropped and didn't even know it. Talking. But all you folks out east, stay dry. We got more rain. Seems like it never ends. I saw there was that satellite image of the coast. I think it was on the Weather Channel yesterday and somewhere else that showed you could see how all the waste and pollution was getting washed out of the rivers into the ocean from a satellite view. looks like it's going to be quite devastating, even still out there on the hurricane impacted areas, and all the flooding is making it worse. I don't see it, but it was on the Weather Channel yesterday. But an interesting overwatching view of that pollution situation, which I wouldn't assume it's like necessarily all petroleum products. It could just be all the farm waste, and a lot of it is going to be runoff and stuff from farms and stuff like that. Still quite dirty, nonetheless. All right, Tommy Boy, you take it easy. Truth Free, thanks for checking in. Dad on YouTube, thanks for dropping in and listening. Walter Davis was with us with all his good ideas. You can do it. Thanks for coming in. And you guys have a good day. We'll see you here on the YouTubes. If we don't see you before Friday, we'll see you then. Have a good week. Live free.